David, what were the most interesting parts of the Hall of Fame voting to you? We're going to talk to Adnan Virk about this as well a little bit later in the show, but can you sort of walk us through, after listening to everybody talk about this for a couple of days, what did you find most interesting?
That there is such unbelievable amounts of love toward Barry Bonds and him being in the Hall of Fame, and how you can't have a Hall of Fame without the greatest hitter in the history of baseball, without the home run leader, as though everybody in the Hall of Fame now shouldn't be there because Barry Bonds is not there. And I think people completely have misunderstood what it means when you get inducted into the Hall of Fame. It is not about who makes up the history of baseball. It is about who gets a plaque in the plaque room. And that's the biggest misunderstanding.
You have your own Barry Bonds stories. You've told us about some of the negotiations. You've told him that as the hitting coach, he was a disaster. What can you tell us about your experiences with Barry Bonds that perhaps people don't know or haven't heard from you?
Well, I had experiences with him as a player. So he had a very tight relationship with Jeffrey. And there was a time when Jeffrey wanted to go on the team plane with the San Francisco Giants, or Barry Bonds wanted to come on the team plane with the Marlins because he was flying somewhere, or Jeffrey was flying somewhere. So there was a love that existed between Jeffrey and Bonds. But I want to be very clear because it's such a misunderstanding. My respect for Bonds as a player is not diminished by my lack of respect of him as a hitting coach or as a person. He was the most feared hitter we ever faced. He was the guy you never want to let beat you, who beat you every time anyway. We had so many conversations with our pitching staff going through that lineup when you're playing the Giants. Do not pitch to him. We were willing to walk him with the bases loaded, no problem. We knew he was on steroids. It doesn't matter, because when you're playing a game, whoever is on steroids, if they're hitting a home run to beat you, you're going to lose the game. But all of this discourse about does that mean he should get a plaque in the plaque room in Cooperstown has completely missed the point of why he's not there. It's because of the way he carried himself, not just during his career, but after his career, his absolutely unwillingness to acknowledge what he did and why he did it, other than to those quietly who he did admit to. That is the reason he did not get the votes. That doesn't in any way diminish what he was as a hitter during that period of time, because he was the best I ever saw.
Are you saying that Barry Bonds has admitted to steroid use?
Are you dry snitching?
Huh. What's a dry snitch?
What you're doing right now. You're dry snitching.
I've never heard that expression.
You're dry snitching.
Are you?
Well, what does it mean?
Like you're revealing someone else's business in a more covert way.
Private, personal business.
You're dry snitching on someone else.
What's wet snitching?
Just straight up saying Barry Bonds did steroids.
Barry Bonds did steroids.
Yeah, but you're saying
wow.
But you saying you've heard him say he's done steroids is the dry snitching.
Well, no, that if you say you
Hold
heard
on,
it,
isn't that wet snitching?
Well, no,
You're
has
dry
Barry
snitching.
told you directly? Has he told you directly?
I'm still trying to get to the bottom line of what you're saying is the difference.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around Barry Bonds doing steroids.
Yeah.
Wait, you're trying to say that this is news to you?
That he admitted it to somebody would be news.
No, it would not.
Oh, yes, it would.
Oh, yes, it would.
Yeah, Greg
Who?
Anderson, it was like,
Went to jail and got put in our Friends Hall of Fame first ballot because he went to jail keeping that secret for Barry Bonds. To whom has he admitted it? And answer Stugatz's question. Has Barry Bonds told you that he did steroids?
I'm not going to be drawn into a conversation about who said what to who and the difference between wet snitching and dry snitching. I'm merely going to tell you that there's not one person in the industry in baseball who does not know that Barry Bonds did steroids. Not one. This is not news, folks.
Yes or
You're
no?
trying to create a headline.
Okay.
You're trying to make the title of your podcast The Local Hour with Adnan reviewing another crappy movie that he didn't even see for 25 minutes. I'm in. But whatever you want to title the episode, it's not about wet snitching, dry snitching, or the fact that, oh, my God, the epiphany of a lifetime. Barry Bonds did steroids. Are you kidding me?
Are you accusing Adnan Virk of not watching these movies he reviews.
Did he tell you that directly?
I'm gonna wet snitch Verk right now. His ability, the fact that you decided to make him a tentpole for your movie reviews with your new company is some sort of, well, I don't want to talk.
Cinephile released today. Chris Cody, the producer.
Sounds like sour grapes to me.
What's on it today? Adnan Verk will join us later in the show.
Well, it's the Spittin' Chickens episode, Dan. Of course. So
of course,
all chickens in movie history. We're talking about them.
Wow.
From the Barry Bonds perjury case, Wikipedia, excuse me, he admitted to using the clear unknowingly. I think what we're talking about here is if O.J. Simpson, if we all think O.J. Simpson committed that murder, that's one thing. But if I say O.J. told me he committed that murder, that's a story.
And both of those are equal
Murders.
stories. They're equal in size, both of those stories.
Yeah.
Please do not compare sticking a needle in your bum to killing your wife.
I was being sarcastic.
Yeah,
it
that
was a joke. Go ahead and hit him with the "you don't get the show," please. Hit him with a frying pan right
How
to the
dare you,
face.
Dan.
For the record, and I'll say this.
You don't get the show.
Murder is worse.
Publicly, so that I don't get aggregated, I was not saying that the steroid allegation is as bad as murder. I was saying it's worse than murder.
Much worse.
Yes,
Worse.
he was.
Yeah.
Worse
It's
than
way
murder.
worse.
Glad you cleared that up.
Brandon Marshall and Jason Taylor have a problem with you and what you said on the show last week. They reached out saying that you're crazy thinking that coaches should be able to touch the players, even as Bruce Arians did. They were very mad at you.
I'm crushed.
Here's a
You
clip
have
of
no idea. My self-esteem has gone to nothing. I feel like I'm 5'5" right now.
You'll never admit that you're wrong, but here's Mike Schur, highly regarded writer of small screen and big screen. I don't think he actually did movies. Here's Mike Schur on his January observation.
I recently listened to a local hour and heard David Samson take a bold and brave stance in favor of coaches hitting their players on the head. You rarely hear the pro side of that argument. So I salute you, David Samson, for standing up for what you believe in, which in this case was that coaches should be allowed to hit their players on the head. You know what the I in David stands for, Dan? It stands for I think it's fine when coaches hit their players on the head. David Samson, appearing in a documentary about Woody Hayes. Collision Course.
Mike, what are the beeps that happen in between? Is that you editing his stuff together because he didn't actually say that? Can you take me behind the scenes?
Get
of
the
how
you
much
don't get
edit
the show again because David Sampson
Matter
doesn't
with you.
listen to anything that we do around
You
here.
don't get the show.
It is just Stugatz's observations. I don't even remember why that started. Do you remember, Mike, why we started with the beeps?
What was the inception? Because you took notes on a game. It was this one specific game that you ran notes through.
I blurted out to you guys that I had taken notes on the notes on the note app on my iPhone, and you guys asked me to. Yeah.
What was the game though? Do you remember? I wish I could find the first one.
What were the beeps though? Why were the
we
beeps?
needed a transition.
But were they from the
show
No,
at one point was overproduced?
Yeah, Mike didn't realize I had so many observations, and so I just started reading them, and he needed a way to break them up, and so he decided to go with a beep. That's
Let's go back to what it is we were talking about, David. Just to get in, you said you don't respect Barry Bonds as a person
I do not, no.
because he was that bad to people.
When you don't respect someone, that's for reasons. You can't not respect someone who you don't know. Let's start with that. Because all of the vitriol that you see on social media and all the people who are in this industry who talk about people who they really don't know at all, my experiences with Barry Bonds are based on my personal experiences with Barry Bonds that I actually had, conversations I had, moments I had. And respect of someone and their ability is different than respecting someone and what they stand for, how they act, and the things they say. I have great respect for his hand-eye coordination and his ability to hit a baseball. What I don't respect about him is actually quite simple. It's the way he carries himself and the way he makes everything about him when he's in a team atmosphere, the way he is in a clubhouse, the way he is as a coach, the way he treated the game, and then how badly he wanted to get back in the game by being a hitting coach, taking advantage of an owner who genuflected in his general direction, thinking that that would in any way bolster his Hall of Fame candidacy, number one. Number two, that it would somehow make it so he could be the reclamation project that A-Rod has become. And the reason why Bonds was never able to do that, and the best he got yesterday, was that ridiculous statement by the San Francisco Giants, which on a recent episode of Nothing Personal, I dissected because it was an absolute disgrace what the San Francisco Giants did when they released what they released about Bonds after not getting into the Hall of Fame, but so obvious why they did it. That's why I have a lack of respect for him. So just be clear that he can change, but he's not going to. You can earn someone's respect. You can gain someone's respect. But for him to do it, he needs to stand up and explain to you and to all of his teammates and to everyone in the media why he did the things he did. That would give me increased respect for him.
I should tell the audience, I did not at the beginning, that the David Samson podcast is something that you should be listening to. Nothing personal with David Samson. It will give you a lot of business insight as well as insights all around sports in places that aren't business. But as an executive, you should know it's a very unique look into the world if you're interested in that part of the world.
Following up on that, David, Major League Baseball talks, ongoing discussions, trying to get a deal done. Some good news, some bad news?
There's been no bad news.
Okay, so it's all good news. We're going to have baseball.
Yeah,
well, that's the bad news.
In your mind, what was the bad news?
That we're going to have baseball.
Okay, now listen, if that's your point of view, then I'm with you. Then it's all bad news because there will be a season. What's going on now is negotiating 101, where proposals are being sent back and forth. Very often the proposals are made knowing they're not going to be accepted. You put a position out there knowing where you are going. We talked about this. Maybe it was on this show. Maybe it was not. Maybe it was on my show where I explained what you do, what you have in front of you is a piece of paper. And on an issue, just take the minimum salary because that's the easiest to digest in a short period of time because you've got to get to Adnan because he's going to review Stir Crazy with Richard Pryor. You have, that's a chicken movie, isn't it? So you have a minimum salary, which is at $570,000. The players want $775,000 per year for their players, and you want to do $600,000. So you have a piece of paper with what the bid is, what the ask is, and what you're willing to settle at. So in very easy terms, when you're negotiating, and I don't know if you guys negotiate your salaries with Skipper or Bimmel or maybe with LeBatard himself, but you obviously don't immediately go to what you're willing to settle for. You ask for more. That's negotiating 101, and that's what's going on with all of these issues in collective bargaining. There will be a deal. It just won't be today because it doesn't have to be today.
I have another question. You all right? Yeah, how you doing? You're a little salty. How you doing? You okay? We buoy your spirits. You're just coming in guns hot, and we're just
perhaps we're being mean to him.
Making content amongst friends, and maybe you took the Mike Schur thing a little.
I think it was the Adnan thing.
Yeah,
I mean he came after Adnan.
Yeah,
no, but I think he doesn't like. I introduced that Adnan will be talking about the Hall of Fame with us later in the show as part of his introduction.
Is it something that I'm doing? I'm sorry. I just
think that the way you guys promote Adnan makes me laugh, as though he is your guy to go to for these things.
He's so good.
And there's so many people who have a microphone, who have a platform, who have not actually done anything.
But you like Adnan.
And what I try to do is be the person who has done something and uses his platform to educate people who don't have to agree with me. I don't care if people like me or disagree with me. I care if you're not educated on a subject.
Jeter and Adnan, big fans. Samson is.
I don't care about Jeter.
Are you Yoda?
Good question.
Well
good question. Yoda. Chris Cody has decided he's going to now ask questions as Yoda.
It's Thursday, Chris. It's a dangerous game.
Did you say, I want to be clear on what your last sentence was there. Did you say that Adnan doesn't know what he's talking about?
Wait, are we still live?
We are.
I want to
although
clear up Chris's last sentence.
We've lost Chris Cody because they're all laughing at him in the shipping container. They've fallen. Some of them have fallen on the floor laughing. Chris Cody is leaking confidence right now. He doesn't know why he said it that way.
Knew what I was doing. I was. I did.
You're back.
I did.
Chris, I think you're amazing because you are making chicken salad out of chicken shit.
Thank you, David.
And then we'll review
got
that
it wrong the second time.
And I thought he got it right.
David, I saw that Apple and you and John Skipper, I encourage you guys to listen to when John Skipper and David get together to talk business. You and John Skipper have talked about the streaming wars and how many billions of dollars are coming to live sports now. But the report the other day that Apple is going to be spending billions, billions plus. I don't even know how you arrive at billions plus. It's not something I'd seen before, but everything's got a plus now. And Apple is saying billions plus on live sports. The reports are. Can you tell me what's happening there and how big you expect them to get into this game?
So do you know how when Michael Jordan would gamble and people were just awestruck that he would golf and gamble $350,000 a hole, and when you did the math based on his salary, it's the equivalent of us going on the DraftKings app and betting like $15 on a game. Like, no one's going to get upset when you're betting $15, so Michael Jordan can bet $350,000. So when Apple does a billions plus, and they do everything with plus, Apple TV Plus, right? So when you do releases, you're trying to get into the minds of people who are listening in a subliminal way. You do it as plus. Billions plus to Apple is like Metalark investing, $1 million in talent. It is not the end of the world. It's not going to cause a complete supply chain breakdown to your P&L statement. What it will do, however, by Apple agreeing to get in this space is they want to compete with Amazon. They want to get into the last remaining vestige of what people will pay for to watch live in what we all know as DVR-proof content. Therefore, for them to be bidders and use some of their market cap, which is generated through iPhone sales and all the different ways that we engage Apple, Apple and Amazon are in a fight for our lives. They want every part of what we do. Think about what you do with Apple right now. They want it all, because when they have it all, that's when the billions become trillions, become gazillions. To do it, you've got to have people on your platform watching live sports. It's why Amazon is in the game and why the networks like ESPN are going to struggle, because they do not have the market cap. They do not have the wherewithal to compete in this arena.
I'm asking you as well, though, for some of the details on what you expect it to look like, because Apple is making these giant movies now. Tom Hanks has released 2 movies on Apple. They basically bought him from the movie industry because they want whatever Tom Hanks brings. So what's going over there? Like, what's going to change for the fan? What do you imagine it means that they're getting in the game or want to get in the game this way?
It's called $5.99 a month for Apple TV Plus. Think about what ESPN is 2 years away from having games on ESPN Plus. You've got Amazon. You have to have Amazon Prime if you want to watch a Thursday night game. So you sign up for Amazon Prime, and the next thing you know, you've got Charmin Ultra Soft toilet paper at your door. If you have Apple TV Plus, not only are you watching Tom Hanks, you're getting live sports, but then you log in with your Apple ID, and then they get at you with Apple One, Apple Care, Apple iPhone, all of that.
Let me ask the question a different way. What are they going to buy? Like, what are they going to put behind their wall that's going to make us go over there? What has value?
Well, first of all, any sort of all the 4 major sports, add from a European standpoint, you can add soccer, you can add any of the tournament that's going now in Africa. While there are coups going on, while a tournament is happening, right? That is still content that is basically swallowed by the rest of the world. So they are going to bid for any sort of that content. It doesn't matter what it is. Anytime there's a package that's up, which is why ESPN and other networks are trying to get long-term deals. But Apple has a horizon that doesn't go 5 years or 10 years like these deals. Apple's horizon goes into the next century. So they're willing to wait however long it takes because for me, they'd love to get rid of Fox. They'd love to get rid of CBS and ESPN and just have everyone watching every sport on all of the Apple platforms.
One more way I'll ask it. You run Apple. You go after right now trying to make the splashes. Not just everything. You go after what? What are you going after because you want
splash
in this game in a way that's substantive?
The same way ESPN started with curling, right? If you are starting, you go after and you overpay for anything that's available. That's how they got Tom Hanks. That you see they're doing it with movies. Why is Adam McKay doing a movie for Netflix with Leonardo DiCaprio? What is the reason, Dan?
The reason is because Netflix is liquid.
That's the end of the story.
Can you review this week's movie for us? Tell us what you're going to review.
Yeah, so this is, don't turn off your podcast, please. I want to talk about, and I hope we have time, but I don't want to get in Adnan's way here, but I want to talk about a movie called Flea. And it is an extremely important movie that's going to be nominated not just for Best Animated Feature, but for Best Documentary and Best Foreign Feature. It is a movie about refugees, and it's a true story, and it's done with a combination of, has anyone on this show seen the movie Flea?
No.
I just Googled it, and I got the Red Hot Chili Peppers guy.
That's really outstanding. I don't even know what to say. It's about an Afghan refugee as a kid who is forced to flee Afghanistan, ends up in Russia, has to be trafficked from Russia over to Europe. On top of that, he's gay, and it goes through his life. And it's a true story with obviously names changed. And it is a tragic tale that, forget white privilege, just how about United States privilege? How about being born in this country with a passport without needing to be a refugee? And this goes beyond homelessness. This goes beyond racism. This is what happens when you are in a third world country where there is war that is financed by the United States, by the way, that results in kids having to flee, families being broken up, not temporarily, but permanently. And on this National Holocaust Remembrance Day, it's important to remember it's not just Jews who have been persecuted and been the subject of genocide, but many, many people, and it's still happening. It's an important movie, and I don't want to get too serious, and I certainly would never want to do anything to upset Chris, but I will say that if you have not watched Flea, you're making a mistake because it's a very, very important watch. It's only 89 minutes, and it's executive produced by Riz Ahmed, which I found interesting. I'm not sure the connection there. I'm not sure if they just used his name after his recent success or whatever the case is, but it's a brilliantly done movie that also has live footage of what happened in Afghanistan. So it mixes anime and live in a way that I'd not seen before. It's original. It is thought-provoking. It is incredibly difficult to watch, but more important than it is difficult.
I am flabbergasted in that I did not think it possible within a 20-25 minute period for anyone on our show to feel greater shame than what Chris Cody felt after falling on his face with his Yoda. But Jessica, once she heard you talking about that subject matter, that serious subject matter, dropped her head in her hands because of how she heard Flea, which is the same way I heard Flea when you started. I thought Flea, and when you said Flea and animated, I was imagining a cartoon Flea.
Yeah, I spelled it with an A, and then I Googled it, and I couldn't find any movies named Flea until then. Yeah, the subject, and then I regretted my.
It happened to me too. Just trust that I didn't know until he started talking about the subject matter that he was talking about Flea with 2 E's.
Yeah.
And I watched Flea with 2 E's on Apple TV Plus and rented it for $5.99 just to bring this in full circle.
Well, that doesn't bring this in full circle. This brings it in full circle.
Segment went well, it didn't. So bad. You can't give me time to think about a line.
You messed that one up.
You just got to let it fly, right?
It wasn't better when I'm just like, small window, boom.
All right.
What do you describe as better?
Funny.
It's the secret portal that they all get. It's his dad's portal, too. It's funnier when I'm just honestly bad.
Yeah.